There's an old saying about mountain climbers that is appropriate here. You don't see many bad old mountain climbers. And why aren't there many bad old mountain climbers? The costs of being bad are severe. One reason that old, successful climbers get old is because they are very good at being observant. Before the climb and during the climb, they carefully prepare, and during the climb, they are constantly vigilant about at least one key factor. They make things safe. They are able to take risks that most people cannot fathom, myself included, because they make every part of the climb very, very safe. The same is true of old, successful pilots. The most successful old pilots are the safest pilots. The same is true of communicators. Safety is essential. When safety isn't maintained, people bail out and don't share, and thus decisions are dumbed down. The best communicators are incredibly effective at making it safe. We'll discuss that in detail in the next principle, which is make it safe. Right now, what we're focusing on is that people who are really effective at dialogue notice when it's safe and not safe. They have learned to look. And when there's a feeling of absolute safety, people can say anything. People don't feel that there is a risk serious enough to drive them to silence. They feel exactly the opposite. How do these effective communicators notice? What do they look for? Here's what our research has shown. They watch for process. They look for the conditions that are working and not working, helping and not helping. They not only notice the what of a conversation, they look at the how. They see content and they notice process. They use that third eye or third ear. An old philosopher once said, "We make the models, then the models make us." In many cultures, people are educated or socialized to be debaters. They are taught certain influence skills to get what they want. For example, early on I learned this. If I cry loud and long enough, I can get my binky or my pacifier. Later I learned that if I want to get my way, I have to shoot holes in your argument. The model says the most important thing is to get what I want. It is a model that is one-sided. Many people are taught incomplete models, inaccurate models, unhelpful models about how to get what they want. Old mountain climbers have a more successful and balanced model. They look at the climb, getting vertical feet, and they also look at safety issues. Less effective climbers only look at the climb and forget safety. This is a one-sided model with severe costs. Like old, successful mountain climbers, the most effective communicators also have a better model. The best have a model that helps them know what to look for. They look at content and at safety. They notice when the conditions are safe and when it is beginning to not be safe. They notice early when safety is at risk. Rather than just trying to win an argument, they are interested in learning and making the best decisions. They understand why dialogue is ultimately better than debate. It is sustainable. They know they can get results and get along. They are not making a sucker's choice. They can be candid and respectful. They can encourage and share. By doing this, they don't have to get even, protect themselves, put a spin on the data, stack the cards, watch their backs, lick their wounds, shoot down others' ideas even if they're good, and so on. Here are the two main issues that the best communicators look for when they are looking at safety. First is opposing purpose. This telltale sign shows up as forms of debating or gaming. When you look at a conversation, are people debating and trying to win rather than trying to accomplish some shared purpose? When people habitually move to convincing, compelling, or controlling to get their way, safety goes out the window. People say to themselves, "Oh, I get it. To win, I need to shoot down your ideas like you're shooting my ideas, and I need to put a spin on my ideas like you are." Or, "Oh, I get it. You're calling me names and making fun of my perspective so you can win. Oh, that's how it's played. I can do that." When you notice that you and others are debating rather than dialoguing, that's a sign to make it safe. Again, we'll explore that skill in the next principle. Mutual purpose is the entrance condition to dialogue. The first step is, again, to learn to look when it's missing. The second problem that shows safety is at risk is lost respect. Are people showing signs that they are not feeling respected? Are people demonstrating that they have hurt feelings? Are they clamming up or are they yelling? When people are feeling that respect is an issue, safety goes out the window. From the moment respect is at risk, the conversation is no longer about getting results. It's about defending dignity. When respect is missing, people either stop sharing the truth, or they start trading insults and cheap shots. Mutual respect is the continuance condition of dialogue. When respect is missing, the conversation will not stay in dialogue. It will move to some other form of fight or flight, depending on how people see the power in the relationship. Have you ever heard or seen a conversation that goes like this? A foreman explains to his team details about a change in the checkout procedure for equipment. Then he asks, "Is that okay?" A couple of team members grunt, "Okay." Heads turn from side to side, meaning no. Eyes are lowered. One guy coughs. The boss says, "Well, good. We're all in agreement then." The dialogue smart would notice right then that safety is at risk. Something's not working. Is it purpose or respect or both? The foreman would notice. He would see and respond with something like, "It seems like you're really not in agreement here." Or, "What's the issue? I can tell by your response that you have some concerns." He would be noticing content and conditions. He would not be caught up solely in the content. We'll get to the specific skills later. Right now, the point that I'm emphasizing is that the dialogue smarts see when safety is at risk. They notice when purpose or respect is missing, and they catch it early. And they respond quickly and skillfully. Let me review. The first thing that the best dialoguers notice is when a conversation becomes crucial. Second, they spot when safety becomes at risk, particularly when people show signs of being offended, respect is lost, or when the conversation turns to debate rather than dialogue, purpose has become opposing. Now let's focus specifically on the top 6 safety killers: 3 forms of silence and 3 forms of violence. A good map helps us see what's going on. When we can see where we are and what's working and what's not working and where we and the others are moving, we're more likely to stay in dialogue and get the benefits. So here's an idea I'd like to explore. A good map can help us see. Here's a description of the Dialogue Smarts model. Right now I want to describe it so you can visualize it without having those of you who are driving take their hands off the wheel. In the center of this dialogue model is a pool of available meaning. It's a circle. This is where dialogue occurs. Our goal in dialogue is to expand the pool of meaning so that we can make better decisions now to get better results and maintain relationships so together we can face and talk about new challenges respectfully and candidly in the future. Around this pool is a safety zone. It is a concentric circle. In this zone are shared purpose and mutual respect. When these 2 conditions exist in abundance, we can have candor and trust. When people move out of that zone, they tend to move in 2 opposite directions: the move toward silence or the move toward violence. These are the safety killers. These destroy dialogue. The extent to which we can see ourselves and others move is the extent to which we are able to catch problems early and stay in dialogue. Here's a statement that I want to emphasize. I'm now standing on a table and waving my hands and arms vigorously so that you can tell this is an important point. The farther we get away from dialogue towards silence or violence, the harder it is to get back and the greater the cost. The sooner we notice, the easier it is to get back and the smaller the cost. If you'll tentatively buy that point for a moment, let me share some specifics of the map to add substance to this point. First, let's look at silence. You know what silence means, the absence of sound, the total lack of communication. People sometimes move a little toward silence by playing verbal games, and sometimes they completely stay silent and intentionally avoid the person. Specifically by silence, we mean any action taken to intentionally withhold information from the pool of meaning. We found that it is useful to identify 3 steps away from dialogue toward silence. But remember the main point. The farther we get away from dialogue towards silence or violence, the harder it is to get back and the greater the costs. The sooner we notice, the easier it is to get back and the smaller the costs. To illustrate this point, let's begin by listening to an example from business. 2 co-workers, Scott and Richard, are complaining about the pace of their work and about their boss, Jackie. Jackie then enters. Richard leaves quickly, leaving Scott in a tough situation. Here's the setup, and then we'll listen to 3 scenes and watch Scott move to silence in 3 forms.
I can't believe it. Have you seen this?
No, what's it about?
It's another last-minute request from Jackie. Well, if she doesn't find a way to do a better job of planning, she's going to kill us.
Are we going to have to work late again because she didn't have the courtesy to schedule her job until the last minute?
It sure looks like it.
Why don't you say something to her?
You have to ask. I'm sick and tired of her making us rush again. That's all we do around here.
Richard took off. He withdrew. Let's look at Scott. The first step away from dialogue is masking. Masking is selectively hiding, misrepresenting your true opinions, understating, sugarcoating, or putting a spin on things are forms of masking the content. For example, sure, I guess you could define guarantee that way, that's fine. People who defer, the head bobbers in organizations, the yes-sayers, are people who are masking their content and their emotions to get along. Now, listen to Scott mask his real meaning with Jackie, his boss.
What's all this talk about a rush?
Oh, we were just talking generally about the pace that people have to keep around here.
Oh, I know what you mean. I go from one rush job to another. It's about to kill me.
Yeah, well, not if I get to you first.
Next is avoiding. Avoiding involves choosing to stay away from sharing information you could share. If someone doesn't ask, we certainly aren't going to bring it up. An example of avoiding is evident when someone says, "Well, you didn't ask me that specific question." Listen to Jackie and Scott and notice Scott avoiding.
What's all this talk about a rush?
Oh, did you ever bungee jump?
No, can't say I have.
Oh, well, it's such a rush. It's like skydiving. You get such a hit of adrenaline, you want to keep going back for more.
You know, Scott, I didn't know you were such a daredevil. Well, listen, I gotta run. See ya.
Yeah, I'm a daredevil. I work with you, don't I? Without a net.
The third step away from dialogue is withdrawing, which means pulling out of a communication altogether. There are 3 ways of withdrawing: emotionally, psychologically, and physically. Minimizing the opportunities to share and interact is at the heart of withdrawing. Watch Scott withdraw, which, by the way, is exactly what Richard did immediately when Jackie came through the door.
What's all this talk about a rush?
I gotta get this down to Jean really quick.
A mug?
Oh, no. Please.
And one more time, what are the main points? First, a good map helps us see what's going on. The Dialogue Smarts model is intended to do exactly that. And number 2, the farther we get away from dialogue toward silence or violence, the harder it is to get back and the greater the cost. The sooner we notice, the easier it is to get back and the smaller the cost. There are a few other not-so-minor points that I'd like to share. First, why do people move to silence? It's often an attempt to find a comfort zone or, and this is significant, to get their way. Sometimes people just don't like to confront, or they are bothered by the discomfort of having to speak up or deal with a specific topic or with a specific person. Sometimes, however, the move is not innocent, not an act of escape. This shows up as the cold shoulder or the silent treatment. Everybody who moves to silence has a reason. Remember, we have a specific definition of silence. By silence, we mean any action taken to intentionally withhold information from the pool of meaning. Are there times when silence is a good option? Sure, particularly when conversations aren't crucial. You may choose to not speak up, but in crucial conversations, if you have information that is important, moving towards silence has negative consequences. Some people justify their silence by calling themselves peacemakers. They don't want to offend or make waves or rock the boat. This is a version of the sucker's choice. A friend of mine has taught me that peacemakers are too often, in reality, problem hiders. They hide problems that just fester and get worse. They value harmony more than quality. They value getting along more than getting results. These are all versions of the sucker's choice. Second, What are some of the costs of moving to silence? The most obvious is that the pool of meaning doesn't have our best information in it, and thus decisions are made that might not be as effective. Sometimes people move to silence because they make assumptions that what they have to say doesn't matter, and sometimes it doesn't. But other times we intentionally withhold or spin our information to the detriment of all. The old story about the naval vessel cruising south along the coast in thick fog comes to mind, near San Diego. The commander commands, "Turn left." He says that, of course, in a much more naval way, and the crew does it. They hit some rocks. The result is that many are injured and 8 sailors die. When officials researched why this horrible occurrence happened, they discovered that more than a dozen people in near proximity to the commander knew that this was a bad decision and they did not speak up. Why? Because it was their commander. Why? Because they trusted the commander. Why? It doesn't matter, because they knew better and didn't speak up, and the costs were severe. When people know and choose not to speak up, they often lower the standard, they settle and then harbor painful emotions. Sometimes they light a fuse for a slow burn that ends up in an explosion. The result is almost always that the pool of available meaning is diminished and decisions are less effective. Third, how common is silence? Silence is very, very common. Our experience and research indicates that silence is way, way more common than violence. Although violence has more visible and often more severe consequences, it is not nearly as common. So in total, the consequences of silence may be larger. For example, in many teams and organizations, numerous employees habitually resort to silence, and they don't speak up when they see a safety violation. They don't speak up when they see waste. They don't speak up when there's a quality problem. They don't speak up when there's harassment going on. Not speaking up and letting problems continue is a huge cost. People who move towards silence haven't figured out that they can have candor and good relationships. The dialogue smart have not only figured that out, they have learned how. In summary, how do we spot the forms of silence that kill dialogue? We learn to look. We become acquainted with the map and notice when people are moving to masking, to avoiding, and to withdrawing. A good map helps us see what's going on. The farther we get away from dialogue towards silence or violence, the harder it is to get back and the greater the costs. The sooner we notice, the easier it is to get back and the smaller the costs.